The story of the Rolloff family is a story of money, property, and heartbreak. We've watched them navigate divorce, business disputes, and the painful division of the farm they built together. But what if the biggest financial betrayal of all happened completely off camera? A silent, calculated theft hidden behind a maze of corporate paperwork. We have received a series of highly disturbing insider reports that suggest a conspiracy far more personal and damaging than any argument over the price of land. This is a story about the legacy of the show itself, about the ongoing royalties meant to provide for the entire family, and how Caryn Chandler allegedly orchestrated a sophisticated heist to secretly divert that money belonging to Amy and the children, into an account that she alone controlled. This wasn't just about the farm. This was about the financial lifeblood of the family's shared history. If what our sources are telling us is true, this is a Hollywood-level heist that could redefine everything you think you know about the final years of the Rolloff family as a television dynasty. It's a story of absolute betrayal. So before we pull back the curtain on this alleged corporate shell game, please support our independent channel by hitting that like button, subscribing to LPBW Update, and clicking the notification bell. You will not want to miss the fallout from this bombshell report. To understand the sheer audacity of this alleged crime, you first have to understand the nature of television money. For a long-running, successful show like Little People, Big World, the paychecks don't stop when the cameras do. The real long-term wealth comes from what's known as royalties and residuals. Every time an old episode is re-aired on cable, every time someone streams a season on Discovery Plus, every time the show is sold to a new market in another country, a small payment is generated. For a single episode, it might just be a few dollars. But when you have hundreds of episodes airing around the clock all over the world, those small payments compound into a significant and steady stream of passive income. This wasn't just Matt's money or Amy's money. It was the family's money, a financial legacy earned through 2 decades of sacrificing their privacy. The original contracts, drafted when the children were much younger, allegedly stipulated that each of the core family members, Matt, Amy, Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob, would receive their own individual share of these ongoing royalties. These payments were their right, a contractual acknowledgement of their contribution to the show's massive success. For years, this system worked perfectly. Every quarter, a small check would arrive in the mail for each of them, a little reminder of the global phenomenon they had all helped create. It was a financial thread that connected them, a shared benefit from their shared past, even as their lives moved in different directions. But according to our sources, Caryn Chandler saw this shared legacy not as a family birthright, but as a pool of unguarded cash, ready to be seized. The alleged scheme began with a simple, seductive pitch to Matt. Caryn, ever the efficient former farm manager, approached him with a proposal that, on the surface, sounded like a brilliant business move. She framed it as a way to streamline his income and protect his assets for their future. She likely told him something like, "Matt, your finances are too complicated. You've got money coming in from the farm, from your speaking engagements, from the TV show. It's all over the place. We need to consolidate everything into one entity. It's cleaner, it's better for taxes, and it makes it easier to manage our future together." To a man like Matt, who loves big ideas but hates the tedious details of paperwork, this sounded perfect. He saw it as Caryn taking charge, being the proactive and business-savvy partner he always wanted. She proposed the creation of a new limited liability company, or LLC. This is a common business practice, and in itself, not suspicious at all. She probably suggested a name that sounded official and legacy-oriented. something like Rolloff Enterprises or Legacy Management Group. She assured Matt she would handle everything, all the paperwork, the lawyers, the bank accounts. He wouldn't have to lift a finger. This was the first critical step in the alleged heist, positioning herself as the sole administrator of Matt's entire financial world. She wasn't just his partner, she was becoming his gatekeeper. So, with Matt's enthusiastic blessing, Caryn got to work. She filed the paperwork to create the new LLC. But here's where the sinister details, according to our insiders, begin to emerge. When she set up the corporate structure, she listed herself as the managing member and the sole signatory on the new corporate bank account. This meant that while Matt was the owner on paper, she and she alone had the practical day-to-day control over every single dollar that flowed in and out of that account. Matt, trusting her completely, likely never even asked for the online banking password. Why would he? Caryn was taking care of everything. With the corporate shell in place, it was time for the master stroke. Caryn allegedly drafted a formal, legal-looking document titled a payment redirection directive. This was the weapon of the crime. The document was addressed to the accounting and legal departments of the television production company. Our sources, who claim to have knowledge of this document's contents, say it was a masterpiece of deceptive language. It didn't say stop paying Amy and the kids. It was far more subtle. It likely stated that for administrative and accounting efficiency, all future royalty and residual payments designated for the Rolloff family talent should now be consolidated and sent via a single wire transfer to the bank account of the newly formed LLC. The wording was key. By using the collective term Rolloff family, she made it appear as if this was a unified family decision, a simple change in how they wanted to receive their money. To a clerk in an accounting department dealing with hundreds of shows and thousands of talent contracts, this would not necessarily raise a red flag. It was signed by Matt Rolloff, the patriarch and executive producer. It was on what looked like official letterhead for the new LLC. It seemed like a legitimate, if slightly unusual, request. The directive was, in essence, a forgery of intent. It used Matt's signature to authorize an action he had no true knowledge of, the seizure of his children's and ex-wife's personal income. Getting Matt's signature on this document was likely the easiest part of the whole plan. Caryn would have buried it in a stack of other papers related to the LLC's formation. One evening, as Matt was heading out the door, she would have stopped him. "Hey, honey, can you sign these last few forms for the new company?" Just standard stuff from the lawyers. Matt, preoccupied in placing his absolute trust in her, would have scribbled his signature on the bottom line without a second thought. He was signing away his family's legacy, and he had no idea. The directive was mailed, and with the stroke of a pen and the lick of a stamp, the financial pipeline that had supplied the entire Rolloff family for years was rerouted into a single account controlled by one person, Caryn Chandler. The first few months of the alleged theft were silent. The next quarterly payment date came and went, and for the first time in over a decade, no royalty checks arrived in the mailboxes of Amy, Zach, or Jeremy. But no alarms were raised. Why? You have to consider their individual circumstances. Amy was in the midst of the most tumultuous period of her life. She was navigating the final painful stages of the farm buyout, moving out of her home of 30 years and planning a wedding to Chris. Her life was a whirlwind of emotional and logistical chaos. A missing royalty check, which could fluctuate from a few hundred to a few $1,000s, would have barely registered on her radar. She would have logically assumed it was a clerical delay, or perhaps that the payment had been rolled into the final farm settlement. Her focus was elsewhere. For Zach and Jeremy, their situations were similar. They were busy with their own growing families, new houses, and their own careers. The royalty checks were a nice bonus, a little financial cushion, but not something they relied on for their day-to-day survival. When the checks stopped, it's plausible they simply didn't notice for a quarter or two. And when they did, the most logical assumption was not grand theft, but something far more mundane. They likely thought, oh, I guess the show isn't in syndication as much anymore, or maybe the streaming deal ended. It simply wasn't a big enough amount of money for them to launch a full-scale investigation with the network. They had their own lives to lead. And so the perfect crime continued, hidden in plain sight by the simple, everyday distractions of life. Meanwhile, all that money, Amy's share, Zach's share, Jeremy's, Molly's, Jacob's, was flowing directly into Caryn's new LLC account. When combined, these small checks amounted to a very significant sum, tens of thousands of dollars every quarter. And this is where we have to turn to some of the exclusive theories our insiders are reporting. What was happening to this money? It certainly wasn't being invested in a trust for the kids. Our sources allege this diverted income became Caryn's personal slush fund. It was untraceable, off-the-books money that she could spend without Matt ever questioning the credit card bills. This theory provides a potential explanation for the sudden and noticeable upgrade in Caryn's lifestyle around this time. There were reports of more frequent and lavish vacations to her favorite getaway spots, photos posted with new designer handbags and expensive jewelry. Then there was the new house she and Matt were building. Construction projects like that are notorious for going over budget. Our sources theorize that this royalty money became the secret fund used to pay for the high-end upgrades, the luxury finishes, the expensive landscaping, all the things Matt might have otherwise balked at. Caryn could simply pay for these things out of the LLC account, and Matt, seeing the bills paid, would be none the wiser. He would just think his brilliant business-savvy fiancée was an amazing financial manager. In this alleged scenario, Amy, Zach, and Jeremy were unknowingly funding the construction of the very house that had replaced their family home on the farm. The irony is as thick as it is sickening. For over a year, this alleged scheme worked flawlessly. The money was silently siphoned off, the family remained blissfully unaware, and Caryn enjoyed the fruits of her deception. She must have believed she had gotten away with it completely. But criminals, no matter how clever, often have one fatal flaw: arrogance. And it was a moment of casual, on-camera arrogance from Matt that would ultimately bring the entire house of cards crashing down. The setting was a typical scene for the show. Matt was giving a tour of the nearly completed new house to a producer. They were standing in the massive, custom-built kitchen with its top-of-the-line appliances and expensive granite countertops. The producer, making small talk for the camera, asked a standard question about the financial pressures of such a big project. Matt, puffing out his chest with pride, delivered the unwitting confession that would unravel everything. He said something to the effect of, it's been a lot, but we've been really smart about it. One of the best things Caryn did was set it up so all the old TV money is now helping fund the new house. It's amazing how that passive income, even after all these years, is really paying for all these beautiful finishes. It's our legacy building our future. To the average viewer, this line would have gone unnoticed. But to the producer standing behind the camera, it was a record scratch moment. This producer wasn't a rookie. They had been with the show for years. They knew the contracts. They knew the payment structure. They knew that all the old TV money wasn't Matt's to spend. His brain was likely racing, wait, what? All the TV money? That's not right. Amy gets a share. Zach gets a share. Jeremy gets a share. That money is supposed to be paid out directly. What is he talking about? He didn't say anything at the moment, letting the scene continue, but a massive red flag had just been raised. Later that day, during a break in filming, the producer found Zach. He approached him quietly, away from the microphones. The conversation that followed was the spark that lit the fuse. The producer said, Hey, Zach, sorry for the weird question, and maybe I'm misremembering, but Matt just said something on camera about using all the old TV money to pay for his new house. I was always under the impression that your share of the royalties and residuals went directly to you. Did you guys work out some new family arrangement to pool the money? Zach's face would have registered pure confusion. He likely responded, "A new arrangement? No. To be honest, I haven't seen one of those checks in ages. I just figured the show wasn't making any money in reruns anymore." The producer's expression would have turned to one of serious concern. "Zach, that's not right," he would have insisted. "The show is doing better than ever on streaming. Those payments should be coming through. They might be small, but they should be consistent. Our records show the payments are being made." In that single moment, the fog of blissful ignorance evaporated for Zach. A year's worth of shrugged shoulders and minor confusion suddenly coalesced into a sharp, terrifying suspicion. It wasn't a clerical error. The payments hadn't just stopped. The money was being sent. So, if he wasn't getting it, where was it going? The producer's innocent question had just armed Zach with a horrifying new reality. His family's legacy was being paid out, and someone was taking his share. He immediately knew who he had to call. He had to call his mom. The quiet theft was over. The investigation was about to begin. The phone call from Zach to Amy must have been a jolt of ice water. As Zach recounted the producer's offhand comment and his own dawning realization, a sickening feeling would have washed over Amy. Her own missing checks, which she had dismissed as an administrative oversight amidst the chaos of the buyout, suddenly seemed far more sinister. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a pattern. Amy, Zach, and Jeremy were all experiencing the same thing. The odds of a simultaneous, years-long clerical error affecting only them were practically zero. This was deliberate. A quiet, gnawing suspicion she may have harbored in the back of her mind now roared to the forefront. This had Caryn Chandler's fingerprints all over it. But suspicion, no matter how strong, isn't proof. They were dealing with a corporation with contracts and legal departments. They needed more than a gut feeling. They needed a paper trail. Now fully alarmed and activated, took the lead. She made the call to the television production company's business affairs department. This wasn't a call a producer could make. This had to come from the talent named in the contract. She explained the situation calmly and professionally, stating that she and her children, also party to the original agreements, had ceased receiving their contractually obligated royalty payments over a year ago and were seeking to understand why. An inquiry like this from long-term high-profile talent gets taken very seriously. The legal department was immediately looped in. Within a few days, Amy received a secure email. Attached was a scanned PDF document. As the file loaded on her screen, her breath caught in her throat. There it was, the payment redirection directive. It was exactly as our sources described, a formal-looking letter on the letterhead of Matt's new LLC. She saw the deceptively simple language instructing the company to consolidate all rolloff family payments into a single account. She saw the LLC's bank account and routing numbers. And there, at the bottom of the page, was the signature that made her stomach clench. Matt's familiar looping script. But just above the signature line in small print was a detail that told the whole story. Prepared by Caryn Chandler, managing member. It was the smoking gun, undeniable and damning. Caryn hadn't just given Matt some friendly advice. She had personally drafted the legal instrument of the theft. She had put her own name on it. She had used Matt's signature as a rubber stamp to authorize a crime, creating a document that legally redirected her fiancé's family's income into an account that she and she alone controlled. Amy immediately forwarded the document to Zach and Jeremy. The explosion of anger and betrayal was instantaneous. They had been played for fools. For over a year, Caryn had been smiling at family gatherings, playing the part of the future matriarch, all while secretly pocketing their money. Every dollar they were owed had been collected by her and, by extension, had been spent on her lavish lifestyle and the dream house she was building with their father. The sense of violation was profound. This wasn't a business dispute. This was a deep, personal theft from within the family circle. Now, we must consider another exclusive theory from our insiders regarding Matt's knowledge. Was he aware? Was he a willing participant? The consensus from our sources is an emphatic no. In fact, they suggest Caryn went to great lengths to ensure Matt remained ignorant. According to this theory, Caryn created a sophisticated system of internal accounting within the LLC to hide the stolen funds from Matt. She would present him with doctored spreadsheets and financial summaries that only showed his portion of the royalty income. The additional funds from Amy and the kids were allegedly coded as miscellaneous business income, or asset transfers, vague terms that Matt, with his aversion to financial details, would never question. She effectively created a secret set of books. When he saw the LLC's bank balance, he would just see a healthy number and think, wow, Caryn is doing a great job managing my money. He had no idea that a significant portion of that balance was stolen property. This deception was crucial to her plan. By keeping Matt in the dark, she not only prevented him from stopping her, but she also insulated herself. If the scheme ever blew up, she could feign ignorance or claim it was a complex misunderstanding, a mistake in the paperwork. She could even try to shift the blame to the lawyers or accountants. Keeping Matt ignorant was her get-out-of-jail-free card. She was playing a dangerous, high-stakes game, and for over a year, she had been winning. The confrontation, when it finally came, was apparently nothing short of explosive. It wasn't a quiet, one-on-one conversation. Amy, Zach, and Jeremy, armed with the printed-out directive, allegedly decided to confront Matt and Caryn together. They needed to present a united front to prevent any possibility of being divided and conquered. They arranged to meet at the farm, the symbolic heart of the family. Under the pretense of discussing a scheduling issue for the show, Matt and Caryn were reportedly in a relaxed, jovial mood when the others arrived. They had no idea of the storm that was about to break. Zach, often the most direct of the family, didn't waste time with pleasantries. He held up the document. "Dad, what is this?" he demanded, his voice shaking with fury. Matt would have glanced at it, confused. "What are you talking about?" "That's just some of the paperwork for the new LLC Caryn set up to manage my finances." "Your finances?" Amy's voice cut in, sharp as glass. "Matt, this document redirects our money. My royalties, Zach's, Jeremy's. It sends every penny we've earned from the show for the last year and a half into her bank account." She pointed a trembling finger directly at Caryn. The scene would have descended into chaos. Matt, completely blindsided, would have turned to Caryn, his face a mask of disbelief, searching for an explanation. "Caryn, what are they talking about? This was just to streamline my income. Tell them it's a mistake." But Caryn, faced with the undeniable proof in their hands, had nowhere to run. Her usual calm, collected demeanor would have shattered. According to one source, her first instinct was to play dumb. She tried to claim it was a misunderstanding, a clerical error made by the production company. "I just told them to send Matt's money to the new account. They must have misinterpreted the instructions," she likely pleaded. But Amy wasn't having it. "Don't you dare lie to us," she would have shot back. "Your name is on the document, prepared by Caryn Chandler. You wrote this. You knew exactly what you were doing. You have been stealing from my children." The word stealing would have hung in the air like a poisoned dart. For Matt, this was the moment of horrifying clarity. It was a sickening echo of the appraisal fraud. He was once again staring at undeniable proof that the woman he loved and trusted had been running a secret criminal enterprise behind his back. The lie was too big. the evidence too clear. He would have looked at the document, at Caryn's panicked face, and at the betrayed, furious faces of his children and ex-wife, and the devastating truth would have hit him with the force of a physical blow. He hadn't just been misinformed, he had been used. His trust, his name, and his signature had been the primary weapons in a heist against his own family. The immediate fallout was apparently catastrophic. The screaming match that ensued was said to be of epic proportions, with accusations and denials echoing across the farm. Zach and Jeremy, feeling the sting of a dual betrayal by both their father's ignorance and Caryn's greed, were reportedly unrelenting. They demanded an immediate accounting of every dollar that had been taken. They wanted to know where their money went. Was it in the granite countertops? Was it in her designer wardrobe? The confrontation was a complete meltdown of the family's already fragile structure. This is where the story gets even murkier and leads to our final exclusive theory, one that attempts to explain the subsequent and very public estrangement between Matt, Zach, and Jeremy. What happened after that explosive confrontation? Again, there were no police reports filed. An official accusation of wire fraud and theft against Caryn would have created a legal and media firestorm that would have been radioactive for the show and the family brand. A quiet, internal solution was the only path forward, but the damage was already done. Our sources theorized that in the days that followed, a frantic behind-the-scenes negotiation took place. Caryn and Matt, in a desperate act of damage control, would have had to pay back every single cent of the diverted royalties to Amy, Zach, and Jeremy, likely with a significant penalty added on top to ensure their silence. This would have required them to liquidate assets or pull a huge amount of cash from the LLC, a financial hit that would have been both painful and humiliating for Matt. He was essentially paying his children back for money his fiancée had stolen from them. It was a ransom payment to keep the secret buried. But while the money could be repaid, the trust was irrevocably shattered. This, our insiders insist, is the true root of the deep and bitter rift we now see between Matt and his sons. The public narrative has been focused on the failed farm negotiations, with Matt painting Zach and Jeremy as entitled and unwilling to pay a fair price. But what if that was a smokescreen? What if the farm deal was simply the final straw, the public battleground for a much deeper, more personal war that had already been lost in private? Think about it from Zach and Jeremy's perspective. How could they ever enter into a complex, multi-million-dollar business deal with their father, knowing that his partner, who would inevitably be involved in managing the finances of that deal, was a proven thief who had already stolen from them once? Any trust they had left in their father's judgment was gone. They saw him not as a patriarch, but as a man completely manipulated by Caryn, a man who was either unable or unwilling to protect his own children from her greed. The farm negotiation wasn't just about money, it was about trust. And they knew with absolute certainty that they could not trust the financial stewardship of Caryn Chandler. Their refusal to buy the farm wasn't about the price. It was about the people. They were refusing to go into business with a woman who had betrayed them so intimately. This theory reframes the entire family dynamic. Matt's public frustration and his accusations against his sons might not be coming from a place of greed, but from a place of deep shame and desperation. By publicly blaming his sons for the deal falling through, he creates a new narrative, one that conveniently omits the royalty heist and Caryn's role in destroying the family's trust. It's a desperate attempt to control the story, to paint himself as the victim of his children's entitlement rather than the unwitting accomplice in his fiancée's crime. And so the Rolloff family remains fractured, held together by the thinnest of threads, for the sake of the television show that continues to be both their greatest blessing and their deepest curse. The smiles for the camera hide a chasm of resentment and betrayal. Amy and Chris maintain a polite but distant relationship with Matt and Caryn, bound by a shared secret and a non-disclosure agreement of the soul. Zach and Jeremy have created firm boundaries, keeping their father and Caryn at arm's length to protect their own families from any further financial or emotional damage. The royalty money, the legacy of their shared work, now flows correctly. The checks arrive on time. But the passive income that was once a symbol of their unity has become a painful quarterly reminder of the day they discovered a thief was living inside their own family. The Hollywood heist was over, the money was returned, but the cost was a family, and that is a debt that can never truly be repaid. What do you believe happened? Is this theory the missing link that explains the shocking breakdown of the Rolloff family? Share your thoughts and your own theories in the comments section below. And please, if you value these deep dives into the stories the network won't tell you, make sure you are subscribed to LPBW Update with all notifications turned on. There is always more to the story, and we will be here to uncover it.